Happy Solstice 2016 to everyone, and welcome to a VoxCommando tutorial. David on our forum at VoxCommando recently posted a great demonstration and then followed up with a very thorough tutorial on how to use the Amazon Echo or the Amazon Echo Dot, which is quite an inexpensive and powerful microphone, to send recognized speech to VoxCommando. In this case, you won't be using VoxCommando's built-in recognition. You'll be using the cloud-based recognition of Amazon, which is excellent, especially for open dictation. Currently only is available in English and German, though. In the end, the recognition functionality of VoxCommando is much better because of all of the predetermined phrases for things like your music. If it's possible to use VoxCommando directly, it's faster and it's more accurate. However, there isn't really a good affordable microphone that can be always on. The Echo has a good built-in array microphone and also a keyword function that's built in, so when you say Alexa, it recognizes that and then starts uploading your audio to the cloud. So in any case, there are pros and cons, but it's a good option to have, especially if you want to have an inexpensive hands-free solution, an always-on hands-free microphone. And the Amazon Echo obviously has its own ecosystem that could be of interest to you as well. Eventually, you won't need VoxCommando. But for now, I'm going to show you how to do it. So the first warning that I must give you is that this is a pretty advanced tutorial. It's not for everyone. You'll need to know how to do port forwarding on your router. It's not optional, because we need to make a way that the Amazon system is able to send information into your local area network to your computer that's running VoxCommando. So you'll have to open up a port and direct that port to your computer running VoxCommando. I can't really give you a tutorial on that because, apart from not wanting to show you my settings on my router, every router is going to be different. So you can easily find this information or get assistance on the internet, depending on the type of router that you have, and almost any router should be able to do this. So the first thing you'll want to do after you watch this video is to go to the VoxCommando page where David has posted this excellent breakdown of all the steps that are required. This video is more just to give you an idea of what to expect and maybe to clarify some things, because it is there are quite a few steps involved, so it might help if you can see them first. The other thing I should warn you about is that you'll need to create a few Amazon accounts, developer accounts. These are all free, however, at least one of them requires you to use a credit card, which is noted here. So the first thing to do is to configure VoxCommando and your router. We're going to be using the TCP plugin, and a feature of the TCP plugin is that we can enable a web server, which allows other devices or services to send API requests to VoxCommando through an HTTP GET. All you really need to do after you enable the TCP plugin is go into the settings, enable the simple web server, and select a port. And of course, this is a port that should be not used by your router already, isn't already being forwarded somewhere else, and isn't being used on your computer by some other program. So generally avoid using port 80 in case you've got some other web server already running there. And if you have Kodi or something like that running, you might also have a port being used by that. So make sure you have a free port. Check this, set the port, click save. You can click this button to test that it's actually functional. Now, to really test it properly with the port forwarding would require you to go to some computer that's outside of your LAN and try to access your computer remotely. You'll also need to know your wide area network IP address, so your external IP address. And one way to do that is to go use a surface like whatismyipaddress.com. In the long run, if you don't have a static IP on your internet plan, then you'll need to use some kind of a service like DYN DNS or one of the free services that might come with your Synology drive or some other device that gives you a domain name which gets updated to always point to your external IP address. before starting, those are the two things you'll need to know basically are this port that you've chosen and your external IP address. And of course, this is the port that you would forward when you're configuring your router. You forward this port so that it points to your computer running VoxCommando. All right, so now we're getting to the Amazon part, Amazon Developer Console. I'm on step 5 here. I'll put these side by side. And by the way, after you've logged in, like if you follow this link and then you have to log in, you won't be on the right page anymore. But what you can do is you can go to this Alexa tab and then click on the Alexa Skills Kit, Get Started. So you click Add New Skill. Now here we need to fill in information for a number of these categories. Skill type, we use the default. Language here, you could choose either English US or UK or German. I'm going to use English US. And then you can give it a name. So this, I think, can be anything, but let's call it VoxCommando. And then the invocation name is the word that you're going to use after you say Alexa. If I were to make it Vox, then the way I would issue commands would be to say, Alexa, tell Vox blah blah blah. Vox doesn't always get recognized so well. Sometimes it gets Fox or Box. So you may have to experiment with what works for you, and it may depend on your accent and what language you're using. But I'm going to try Jarvis. And so now I would say, for example, Alexa, tell Jarvis to turn on the lights. Something like that. Now we click Next. And we continue to follow these directions. So the intent schema, we can just copy and paste this directly from the tutorial. We need to click Add Slot Type here. And we're going to call this Commands. You do need to call this Commands. It could be called anything, but then it would change the code that you need to use later on. Or as you can see here, I think this is referring to commands up here. So it is important that we define it and call it commands. And here, it seems that this is kind of arbitrary. You can enter whatever you want. But I think it may help to enter words that you would commonly use. And it doesn't need to include all the things you could possibly say, though. Just a few things. I'm not sure exactly what purpose this serves. Perhaps if you had a word that was often not being correctly recognized or that wasn't being spelled properly, it might help to add it to this list, but I can't guarantee that at this point. So you'll click Save here. And then the next step is the sample utterances. And like, this is sort of, I guess, telling it giving it a template for your commands. So this sort of makes it flexible that you can say almost anything, I believe. And we click Next. So now that would save and validate everything, and we move down to the next step, which is the interaction model. Now, one thing that we've accomplished is we now have this ID. So you don't necessarily want to copy it right away, but you want to keep this page open now so that we can come and get this information. We're going to complete another step and then come back and fill out this page. The next step is noting the ID, as I've mentioned. Now we're going to the other Amazon developer area. I'm going to copy this address so that I can open a second tab here. So at this point, you'll need to sign in or create an account if you haven't already done that. And then you want to go to the first section, which is called Compute, and click on Lambda. So you can see here, Compute, Lambda. Then, oh yeah, this is important. Up here in the top right, there are many different regions that you can access Amazon through, but in order to use the voice services, you must select US East, North Virginia, or I think Ireland. Okay, Okay, so in my case, because I'm in North America, I'll choose the closest one, which is US East North Virginia. And if you're in Europe, you would probably want to choose Ireland. And then you want to click on Get Started Now. So that we are going to go with a blank function. And here you click on this empty box and select Alexa Skills Kit. So whatever this means, Alexa Skills Kit is going to be sent to a Lambda function. This Lambda function is going to be doing the processing and then contacting our TCP server in VoxCommando. So we click Next here. My function name, I believe you could name this anything. So I will call it test echo to VC. Send voice commands to VoxCommando. So these two are really up to you. I think this may appear later in the Amazon app, but the runtime does need to be Node.js 4.3. And now we enter our code. So we've got a large amount of code here that's already done. So you just click select all and copy and paste it. Remember to delete the old text that's here. Paste this in. Now we need to adjust a few variables at the top. So the port in this case happens to be the port that I already selected in VoxCommando, so port 8096. Whatever port you are using, you should enter that here. This event, you can call it anything you want, but it's going to appear in the VoxCommando history window, and we give you a sample command that uses this event, so I recommend that you don't change this for now. This is where you need to either enter your IP address or your domain name. I have a DNS service. I'm going to enter my domain name here, and I will cover it up with a block so that you can't see it. Avoid using weird characters in any of these, especially avoid obviously using an apostrophe, because these strings are enclosed in an apostrophe. So if you put an apostrophe in your code here, you can see it'll create all of these errors. So just be conservative in naming things. All right, I'm going to enter my domain name here. Line 13, we need to enter that ID. So this ID here, be careful to select it with no spaces around it. Now we want to go to line 13. And paste it in here. And we're done with this. We don't need environment variables. We don't change the handler. You leave that as index handler. Now here you can choose existing role. If you don't have an existing role, you can go to create new role from templates. Call it my echo to VC role. Doesn't really matter. I think I want to choose here as my policy template. Don't really know if this matters. So the rest, the advanced settings, you leave all the default settings as they are and click next. And now we are done. We can click create function. And now you'll see that we have this ARN up here, which is what we need on the other page. So it's a bit of a chicken and egg situation here. Over here you need this ID to put into your Lambda code, and then you get the ARN that you need to go back, copy the ARN, go back, and you put it in this page. So select AWS Lambda ARN. I select North America, and then paste the ARN in here. You don't need to select anything here. You can click next. And now this is enabled and we're actually ready to start using it. I don't actually have an echo. I've been using a combination of this service simulator where you can enter in your text, or using something called echosim.io, which I'll demonstrate in a second. So if I bring up VoxCommando and my history window now, here I can type something in, and if we've done everything correctly, it should appear as an event over here. So I will type show help and then click ask VoxCommando. So in this case, when you're filling in the text on the service simulator, you don't need to write Alexa tell Jarvis. You just write the command that you want to send directly. As you can see, I did everything right. And we got an event saying that TCP received a message, and the actual event generated is here. The first payload is the voice command, and the second payload is the room, which is one of the variables we set in our JavaScript code. Currently, I don't think this second payload is of any use to us, but eventually we may figure something out. The next thing to do would be to actually test a voice command using accompany.io. This is something that I previously have logged into Amazon with this, so it's associated with my account, and it should now work based on the skill that I've added. And how this works is I click here and say the command. Apart from the fact that I have to click the button, it works the same way as the echo, only much slower. Alexa, tell Jarvis show help. So this part on the echo I think takes less than a second, but on this free service takes a little longer. So we got our event again, echo to VC, and it should say show help. So now we just have events. What you do with the events is up to you, but one of the things we've included in the tutorial is a little XML to convert that event into a voice command. So you can copy this into your VoxCommando tree. What this does is it triggers this voice command whenever the echo to VC event is triggered, and then it takes payload 1. I'm setting this variable to say which echo the command came from, but this for now isn't really useful. It's just to show that we could store this variable in case you wanted to use it for logic later. The main thing here is that we take the payload 1, which in my last example would have been show help. We pass it to tell Vox, so this emulates a voice command. So now that if I save this and do this test again, I'll clear the history. If we do this test again, it should show up and execute the command show help. Alexa, tell Jarvis show help. And I believe you can say tell Jarvis to show help, and Alexa will not pass the word to along, but don't quote me on that.
These are all of the voice commands for this configuration.
Okay, so it's there, we have it, it's working. I'll just do one more demonstration. I've got a voice command for playing music on my Sonos. Alexa, tell Jarvis, play artist Peter Tosh. So my Sonos is low volume and it's at the other end of the room, but if I open up the Sonos app here, you can see that it's playing some Peter Tosh for me. That concludes this tutorial. I hope that you're able to follow along. And as I said, I recommend you really go follow the written instructions more than this video. And hopefully if you're careful and follow every step, it'll work out for you. And if you're thinking about getting an Echo, I recommend you do this first to see how it works before you actually spend the money or put yourself on the waiting list or any of that. Thanks for watching, and have a Happy New Year.